everybody to the March 3rd, 2016 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I will go forward, introduce everybody on the board, and then give some ground rules for how we usually proceed. This will be from your left to right. Mark Poole is an associate member of the board. Ken Foreman is the vice chairman of the board. I'm Kimberly Beelan. I'm the chairman of the board. Next in line is TJ Hurry. He's the clerk of the board. And Ed Van Kuren is a regular voting member of the board, and Paul Murphy is also a regular voting member of the board. Next in line, is Sri Vajra, the zoning administrator, and Andrade Guyschecker is our recording secretary. So tonight on our agenda we have 3 continuations, so these have all been open. So we'll have the applicant in each circumstance come and make a presentation. The board will then ask questions. We'll then open it for public comment. Public comment should be limited to 2 minutes, and it should address only the matters that are before the board. So any personal gripes or anything of that nature will not be allowed. It's just to the application that's before us. If the board feels that they have enough information, we'll close the hearing, and we might have some deliberation. If we feel like we need some more information, we will continue the matter to another hearing date. Also, I would like to ask everybody to silence their cell phones too before we move forward. So the first item on the agenda is number 116, Smith, 30 Martin Road, modification of a special permit to change use.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman,
Yes.
do you want to state who the voting members are?
So voting on this is myself, TJ, Ed Van Kuren, Paul Murphy, and Mark Poole.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Nickerson. I'm with the Falmouth firm of Oppenheim & Nickerson, here with my client, Thomas Smith, who's the applicant in this matter. This matter was opened about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and the initial proposal included a residential component. As you'll see from the correspondence in the file, we're not looking to do anything residential at this property anymore. This is solely a conversion from a use as a plumbing contractor to a general contractor use. There are 2 special permits out for this property in 1992 and 98. Both of those special permit decisions identify that the use of the property is commercial, specifically a plumbing use. Again, all we're doing is modifying it, changing it from a plumbing use to a contractor's use. Falmouth Code 243C permits the extension, alteration, or change of a pre-existing non-conforming use by special permit issued by this board. Our proposal would be for the first floor to be simply storage space, shop use, and the second floor would be partial storage, partial office space. We expect to have 1 staff member who would be an administrative person in the property during the hours of operation, asking for hours of operation from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. Mr. Smith, the owner, is also going to have an office suite in there. He'd come and go to jobs and back to the property as necessary to get his work done. There would also be part-time staff, such as a bookkeeper, somebody who's not going to be there every day, just as needed, a couple hours to get the work done. So what standards should the board consider in allowing or not allowing this change? The board should consider whether the change in use will be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing use. Substantially more detrimental. If the change is not substantially more detrimental, this board has the ability to allow the change in use. I suggest to the board here that we have a contracting use, a plumber. All we're doing is changing from a plumbing use to a contracting use. This is a net neutral change in our view in terms of intensity of the use. Presently, the special permits don't limit the operation of the plumbing business as to time. We're willing to say 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday if that would please the board. Obviously, no work on Sundays, no overnight work. If you take a quick look at the site plan, it's a little bit different from the last iteration. The former iteration had some parking in the rear. That's been eliminated completely. The board wanted to know exactly where this lot line was. You'll remember that these 2 lots have not been merged by a recorded A&R plan. Lot 1, which is where the pre-existing non-conforming use was limited by the previous decisions, is where we're going to have our structure and the bulk of our parking. Arrowhead Circle is a paper street. Currently, it's not built out, it's just vegetation and some gravel. We propose to have 5 parking spots in the front, 5 parking spots in the side, partially in Arrowhead Circle, which again is not used by anyone right now. Our current special permit decision allows 7 parking spots in the front of the building and requires that any overnight parking be in those spots. We propose to reduce that, obviously, to get some access to these spots in the back, which again, we'd like to have those be gravel spots so that we don't have to pave. We think it would be in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. One of our abutters suggested that that would be an appropriate spot to have some of these parking spots because they could be screened by a fence. There's currently some fence out there that is in need of repair. Our client's looking forward to repairing it, trying to spruce up the property as best he can, and to provide a attractive building with a use, hopefully in keeping with the expectations of the neighborhood. Just again, so the board is aware, the adjacent property here is a pretty large nursery, which is a very impactful use during the months when it's in full swing. Obviously, we're going to be there all year long, not just in a limited capacity as the nursery is, but this is not a one-off sort of a use. There's a commercial use directly next door. I hope that's helpful to the board. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, let me see, maybe this question. Paul?
Yeah, I just have a question for you. So you feel it's permissible to allow, to create parking within a right-of-way?
So we own to the center line of that right-of-way, because it's just a paper street.
Yeah. Subject to the rights of other people, of course, right?
Right.
And so you don't feel as though creating parking within that private way and off-premise frustrates, you know, your application at all?
Well, if it would be to the preference of the board, we'd be happy to locate it on this section of the property instead, where we could locate it entirely inside the property and not in that paper street.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm still going to think about that, but that was my initial question.
Sure.
Ed?
No, I was concerned about the same issue, too.
TJ?
Will the backhoe be located on that concrete slab that was mentioned?
That would be our proposal as well, yes. That there would be an excavator on the site. To the extent that it's on the property, we'd like to have it on this concrete slab in the back. That's where the existing septic tank is. That probably have to be increased to an H20. It's probably an H10 right now. But again, the idea is to try to screen as much as we can for our neighbors.
And is there a kitchen located in the premises at all?
I believe on the second floor, there's a fridge up there, I believe, and a sink. Kitchenette. Little kitchenette.
Is there any stove involved with that or anything?
No stove. No stove.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Mark?
Sure. So, Mr. Attorney Nickerson, would you consider the modification from a plumbing, heating facility to a general contractor's use more or less intensive?
Well, with the reduction in hours, I would consider it certainly less intensive.
And so the requirement, or what you described as being what you anticipate to be the requirement for employees, that's less intensive too?
Yes, I believe in the last hearing, the current Neil Martin, who's here, said that he had up to 20 employees at one time, and we don't expect to have more than 10.
So, given that, what justifies 10 parking spaces?
Well, we have currently 7 parking spots that's allowed by the existing decision. We thought it might be...
And just to clarify for members of the board and the audience, those 7 are broken down to, let's see, what the heck, I got it. It's 6 basically that are for the operation of what is the plumbing business, and 1 to be a personal vehicle. Is that correct?
I don't believe so, no. I think the prior decision said all 7 were for vehicles, commercial vehicles, to be parked overnight in front of the property between the building and the road.
That's not what I have. You're speaking of special permit 7-98, correct?
Yes. I believe that...
1 backhoe, 4 trailers, 2 pickup trucks, and 1 personal vehicle. That's what I have.
That's what we're proposing. Yes.
Actually, that's what's in the special permit 7-98.
Special permit 798, condition number 1, a total of 7 commercial vehicles registered to Gilmartin Plumbing and Heating may be parked overnight in the parking spaces in front of the building.
Okay. I'll strike myself as wrong there, but can you explain to me why there's a need for an additional 3 spaces?
Well,
With the testimony that you provided, it being a less intense business or business practice.
Sure. So I believe that of the materials I submitted, there were 4 trailers, 1 backhoe, and there were 2 commercial construction pickup trucks that would theoretically be in operation at the site. It's a
Okay.
total of 7. To the extent that the trailers weren't out on jobs, and again, Mr. Smith wants these trailers and these vehicles out on jobs and doing work, not sitting in the lot, there might be a need to have parking for an employee. Maybe 2 of the guys go in one of the guys' pickup trucks, he might need to leave a vehicle at the property. So a little bit of extra parking would be helpful for that.
I'm not quite following, though. I mean, I understand the requirement of the backhoe, the trailers, pickup trucks, for the existing use, which is plumbing and heating. If it turns into a general contractor's use, are those vehicles required or necessary?
Well, so the backhoe, trailers, and 2 pickup trucks are for the proposed use. They don't have anything to do with the plumbing use.
Okay.
So that's a total of 7. So we could have just those 7 vehicles there at all times if the board allows a change in use and allows, again, 7 vehicles to be there as previously.
So if that is allowed, what would be the plan for employee parking?
That's exactly the reason to have these extra spots.
Okay. Let's see here.
Jeff, I'd like to clarify.
Excuse me, if you're going to speak, you have to get up and provide your name and address.
That satisfies my question.
Okay.
So there was a little bit of discussion last time concerning, now that it's a special permit modification being asked for, the board can review what they constitute as being applicable bylaws.
Sure.
And obviously, this is pursuant to 243C, which, dictates whether it's substantial or not to the neighborhood, in effect. How do you think 24018 should play into this? Which is basically classification of uses. You're asking for, it's a commercial use, understood, but the more specific would be, now it's turning into a general contractor use.
Well, I would say that the current use is that of a contractor's yard as defined in the zoning bylaw.
The current plumbing and heating use?
Yes.
Okay. If that's what you would,
In support of that, I'd like to read the definition of a contractor's yard. Contractor's yard, premises used by a building or construction contractor or subcontractor, principally for the storage of equipment and supplies, fabrication of sub-assemblies, and parking of wheeled equipment.
okay. So you're aware of the various concerns neighbors have?
Yes, I was present at the last hearing. I heard those. I understand there's been some correspondence submitted. We understand that that exists. As far as we're concerned, if this change is allowed, that's the past. We're looking to move forward, looking to have a nice operation out there, as described.
Can you, with those into consideration, those concerns of the neighbors, can you speak on whether the use, the new modified use is going to be, well, I'll retract that. I'm done.
Okay. I do have some questions. So have you submitted anything regarding ownership to that paper street or that portion of the paper street?
No, under Massachusetts law, if you were in a butter to a paper street, you own to the center line,
Derelict fee statute, right?
if that's the common name,
Okay.
sure.
But other people have rights to pass over that?
Correct.
Okay. I have some other questions on this. All storage, will it be contained indoors besides any vehicles?
Yeah, there's a little shed dormer that's shown off the side here. There's currently some pipe that's in there. Mr. Gilmartin used that in his business. To the extent that we could retain that and use that in the new, it's always helpful to have storage.
Okay.
There's also a shed at the back of the property. You can see that's encroaching a little bit on the back lot. We can move that forward.
How do you access that shed? Is it over lot number 7?
No, you can walk right over the concrete slab here, which is at the back of lot 1, to get to the shed.
Is lot number 7 just undeveloped at this point?
Yeah, it's partially cleared. There's some trees back there. There's just some gravel back there.
Do the trucks or any vehicles enter onto lot number 7 when they're using the front lot?
They wouldn't need to, certainly as proposed. We can limit everything to lot 1.
But do they currently?
I don't believe so. I mean, Mr. Gilmartin could.
No, okay. And you testified, I guess I'll get to some questions regarding the employees on site and what's going to be there. So you said one full-time employee on the site?
Right, an administrative person. Yes.
Okay, and then potentially another part-time employee on the site as well?
As necessary, a bookkeeper could come for a couple hours to get some work done.
Okay. Employees parking for work off-site. How many employees?
There would be a maximum of 10 employees, Mr. Smith envisions. Not necessarily having those guys on site. Again, he's not making money by having guys on site. He's a contractor. He wants the guys out at the job site doing the work.
Okay, so the question is, where do all of those 10 employees park?
My expectation is that a lot of them would drive directly to the site themselves.
Is that what will happen?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm sure that we touched on this last time. The plumbing operation that's been in existence for the last few years, what does that consist of? I know that we had some testimony from neighbors saying that plumbing operation has really been non-existent. So what has that consisted of over the past several years?
I'll let Mr. Gilmartin speak to that, but I would
Okay.
point out that our neighbor who is concerned about the use not being consistent with the plumbing use testified that the non-use that he saw occurred for a period of 5 to 6 months. That was his testimony at the last hearing. Under our zoning bylaw, to abandon a special permit, you have to discontinue the use for 2 years. So we're well below any discontinued use. I'll let Mr. Gilmartin talk about the plumbing
Okay.
use.
Hi, my name is Dan Gilmartin, 24 Mansion Street, West Harwich.
So I guess if you could just answer the question that I just asked about the nature and extent of the plumbing use on the property over the past several years.
Over the past several years, it's been operated with my son and myself at a smaller pace than it was prior, when I had multiple employees working there.
When you say smaller place or smaller pace, would you use the site?
It was my son and myself,
So no other employees?
no other employees at that time.
Would you use the site on a day-to-day basis?
Yes,
For plumbing purposes?
Yes.
So you would drive to the site, park as you would, and go out for jobs?
well, we had trucks, we didn't necessarily, leave the trucks there. We'd come in, get what we need, and go to work.
Okay. And that was on a day-to-day basis? Over the past several years?
Up until about 7 months ago.
What's been going on in the past 7 months?
I've been cleaning the building out. After 30 years of plumbing out of there were a lot of materials that needed to be removed.
Okay. That was all I had with regard to the plumbing operation. I think that's all I had for questions at this time. Let me see if Sri, do you have any questions?
I understand that he said that some of the employees will be working off-site, but will 10 employees be on the site at one time for any type of meetings? And if so, where are they going to park, since you only have 3 additional parking spaces? Number one. Number two, are any vehicles going to be inside the garage, the lower level of the structure?
Hi, my name is Tom Smith, and in answer to your question, occasionally there'll be 10 there, but rare. Most of the time, and the business fluctuates from season to season. So in the season, you have more employees, summer, fall, spring, but in the winter, less. So it varies a little bit.
So where are those 10 vehicles going to park? Because obviously if 10 employees are there, all of the equipment is probably there as well.
Right. The reality is there's a lot of parking in that yard right now. All of this right here is considered parking and has been used that way for the last 30 years.
So you're intending to use the right-of-way for additional parking as well?
Well, we could use that, or this is all actual parking here, but we could also create some over here, which Jeff had mentioned earlier, which I don't mind doing. I have no
All right,
problem.
and is any of the equipment going to be stored in the garage?
Could be occasionally vehicles in there, but probably rare.
And are you going to be working on the vehicles at that site?
No.
Any maintenance?
No,
No maintenance at all, no changing the oil, anything like that?
no, I don't get involved in that.
And what about materials being stored? Are there going to, I don't know what type of construction you do.
I build, remodel, repair, and maintain.
So are you going to have
So it's-
any pavers, anything like that, any?
Yeah, there's wood and paint and caulking and stuff like that, but all stored inside.
Stored inside?
Mhm.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I just have another follow-up question. I'll see if anybody else does, based on what was just said. How many employees do Mr. Gilmartin have on a regular basis?
At the peak, I believe the testimony from the last hearing was 20.
When was the peak?
Dan, do you?
The timeframe?
Yes, well, you have to, if you're going to speak, I'm sorry, you have to, for the benefit of the viewers at home.
It was from 1982 to 2008, 2009.
And you testified a minute ago that for the last several years, it's only been you and your son on the site.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let me see if anybody else has any questions.
Sure.
Any other questions? Mark, you all set?
No.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Let me see if anybody has any additional comment from the public. Is anybody here to speak in favor of this? Is anyone here to speak?
I'd like to speak, but not in favor.
Okay, well,
necessarily.
okay, well, I was just about to say, would anybody like to speak in opposition or just speak? You're welcome to just
How about
speak. You can just provide your name and address for us again.
Lars Bergman, 33 Martin Road. Did you guys read my letter?
I'm sure if it was submitted to the
What did you
file,
think
yeah.
about it?
What-
Okay. This is the first time I've heard about 10 employees and heavy construction equipment. It sounds a lot more like light industry to me. Could you guys fill me in on what you guys consider backhoes and other type of excavating equipment? I mean, that sounds like it's a little outside the realm of just regular commercial.
We don't answer questions. We're just here to take public comment, and then we'll have board discussion.
Okay, well, it doesn't sound to me like regular construction or commercial, and it's my understanding, as someone said to me, people toss the word commercial around a lot when they're referring to Mr. Gilmartin's property. And it was never commercial, it was single specific use according to the Falmouth ZBA. Because commercial implies, as I understand it, it's open to anybody outside of residential or AGA or AGAA, all the way up to light industry. Is that a fair assessment? Right? Somewhere in between there? And it sounds to me like a bunch of construction equipment is more tending to be light industry. It implies digging up a road and putting in pipes, for example. So This is the first I heard of it. It was my understanding Mr. Smith had a couple of trucks and a couple of employees. And so, speaking for the neighbors who signed my document, I'm now going to go have to tell them what they think about this. So,
Okay,
those are my concerns.
okay. You see, anybody has questions?
You know, I can't address him directly, but maybe you can tell him later. It's not personal by any means. I don't want to stop anyone from making a living, something John mentioned in his letter. And that Mr. Smith should have all the rights and rules and regulations granted him that I was when I bought my property. It's that simple. The problem is, after we leave here, people do whatever they want. I don't know Mr. Smith. I don't know what the future holds. So,
Okay,
that's all I'm going to say for now.
okay. Thank you. Is anybody else here to speak? Okay. So why don't we have some board discussion? I think that would be appropriate. We haven't closed, but let's have some discussion. So would anybody like to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
I think, you know, I agree that, I think this is still a contractor's yard. Carpenter, plumber, you know, that's a tradesman, so that's fine. I'm just, you know, for zoning purposes, this doesn't bother me terribly, I just wanted to raise the issue. I mean, I look at property lines, not necessarily the fact that someone owns to the center of the road, we know that. But I mean, you know, I suppose the board can authorize anything, but I'm a little uncomfortable about authorizing parking within a right-of-way. You know what I mean? I look at the property line, the parking stays on the property, and we more or less dismiss the center line of the road because that's just for people to pass and repass. So I think that's a little funny, but, you know, we can discuss that a little further, but I think, that was really my only issue. I just thought that was kind of interesting. I don't see that very often.
Okay. Any others? Ed?
Yeah, well, following up on that, it's, if there's 10 employees plus the equipment, the parking shown on here shows 10 total, and could easily be 15. It's going to grow, I think. You know. If business is successful, it will grow. I'm a little concerned about that. That's all I have.
Okay. TJ, do you have any thoughts?
Sure, I thought it was good that the applicant came back and said he was willing to drop the residential portion of it and go strictly commercial, but I'm a little concerned about the intensity of the use, especially with the parking proposed for the site.
Yeah. Mark? Do you have
Well, I think TJ hits on what, you know, I was trying to get at. I think the intensity has dwindled cosmetically, but what's being presented with the additional parking spaces requested, I don't really get a warm feeling from that. Paul brings up a good topic. We should, I think the board should only be addressing the lot of the applicant. I think it's a little beyond our scope and our authority to regulate off the site of the application. So I think Paul's right on with that. The next thing that and it's still open and the attorney can speak to it, but there's a history of complaints and there's a history of actions by the building commissioner's office with regard to the complaints. And so gauging that speaks to me as being, you know, this isn't really nestling into the neighborhood as anticipated by the zoning board that approved the special permit back in '98. So I'm asking myself, within the guidance of 243C, is this modification substantially detrimental to the neighborhood? I'm thinking, given the past practice recorded from the building commissioner, the voiced opinions of neighbors, that this doesn't mesh well with the present neighborhood. So the way that 243C reads is more detrimental than what's previously existing. The expansion of 10 more parking slots versus the authorized 7 speaks to me saying that, yeah, it's probably going to. So that's where I'm on it.
I'm in agreement with everybody regarding the parking. There's all kinds of title issues, and we don't know the background for conveyances of Arrowhead Circle, if there were any. So that's a line that we shouldn't cross as far as those parking spaces. So, you know, obviously, I think if we're inclined to grant this, I think it would behoove us to maybe continue it, because I mean, I don't know how they're going to even fit the proposed parking spaces on, due to the side constraints there and how the layout would be. I'm concerned that there's been testimony that there's parking all over the site anyways, because that just shows that they're disregarding the previous special permit that said you could park 7 vehicles. So that's obviously a big red flag, a big concern. I would be concerned about the use of lot number 7, accessory or incidental to the use of lot number 1. There's such a maximization of stuff going on lot 1, and there's a spillover. We have testimony onto Arrowhead Circle. So I think if we were to approve this, or if we do approve this, we need to really ensure that there are some strict conditions on that. My other concern is in regard to the number of employees. So I think it's reasonable, 1 employee on site, maybe another employee there from time to time. I certainly understand that there will be employees of the business that aren't there. But the concern becomes when the employees are there. Obviously, we've talked about that. The vehicles will be on site, the cars will be on site. We know we don't have enough parking. And 10 employees is significantly more than the use that's been made over the past several years, which is Mr. Gilmartin and his son. And so then that raises the question, was the pre-existing non-conforming use abandoned? Because the pre-existing non-conforming use was this thriving plumbing business. So was having it change in character so different that they abandoned the previous 10 or 20 employee business that was operating there. So I think that's a concern. So those are, I guess, the issues that I see. I mean, personally, I think that we could do it if we condition it. There is a new property owner who's, I think, potentially going to be coming there, or at least a new operator. I don't want to hold what's happened against him, a prospective purchaser, and certainly we can't, but I think some changes need to be made to the plan and some more definite information provided to us regarding the employees being on site and things of that nature.
I would agree with your last with regard to we can't hold the new prospective user to what had taken place in the past. However, given what our concerns are, the effort should be made on his part to try to mesh into the neighborhood as well as possible. And so I'm thinking that, you know, maybe 7, the authorized 7 is enough. I don't want to hamper his expansion, but at least it's a start to test the waters, per se. If he wants an expansion for another 3 parking spots, he can always come back for another modification. The other thing that I have difficulty with, or a concern with, is the persistence of wanting 6 to 6. Whereas guidance in the bylaw is typically 7 to 7. I would submit to the board for their consideration that, so as to mesh in with the neighborhood a little bit better, that also be given substantial consideration. But I think the whole point is, right now, as it stands, the existing hasn't really fared well with the neighbors. So, you know, not to hold that against the new person, we need to put some teeth into, or some more detail to conditions, like Kim had said.
I agree with the hours of operation, 7 to 7. That's what we do, that's what the bylaw provides. I don't think that's even, I think that's a non-starter. I think everybody would be on board with that. And my concern with limiting the number of parking spaces, I certainly agree. I don't necessarily want to expand the parking, but then we run into the situation where we already know that the 10 proposed isn't enough. And maybe that speaks to the nature of the proposed use and how it differs from the current use. But we know that the 10 isn't sufficient. So if we limit it to 7, that certainly won't be sufficient. And then where are they parking the spillover? We know that they're parking it on Arrowhead Circle, even though they're not supposed to be at this time. So I guess that's a real issue.
All good questions, but my rebuttal to that would be, this isn't a business district. This is a residential. So, are we conceptually, whether it's plumbing on heating or general contractors or whatever, commercial uses there, are we trying to incite the build-out of this property? Or do we want it to be somewhat resembling the neighborhood so as to fit in? So my thinking is, geez, 7 might be the number, at least for now. And like I had said, if there's a need and it's worked out well with the neighbors, boom, comes back with the modification asking for 3 more parking spots. Easy peasy.
Any thoughts to limiting the number of employees on site?
Right now, the way it's proposed, not knowing anything about a general contractor's use, I would say, that's pretty accurate, in my estimation. 1 full-time administrative person, a seasonal employee to do bookworking at tax time, and 10 employees that go back and forth between this site and the work sites.
Okay. Does anybody else have any thoughts, comments?
If I could talk. No, I'm good.
If we give them a permit with conditions that it takes to 7 or 10 or whatever the number, maybe if the summer season's coming up, if he gets busy, he'll be back here in 3 weeks or a month or 2 for more parking spaces.
Well, that's the concern, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
concern is that and then that becomes, this use isn't suited to the site, right?
And the drawing doesn't say how wide that arrowhead circle, but if it's 40 feet, you're going to be going on the other side of the road to, make the turns to get into the parking spots.
No. Sorry, and I apologize, I don't know this off the top of my head. What kind of parking is required for a contractor's yard?
Well, that's the planning board's
Okay.
purview. Contractors' yards have to be on a site, I think it's 2 acres or more, and the planning board issues those special permits. So I'm not familiar like I
Okay.
should be,
Yeah.
I guess. But again, that's a concern of the size of this lot versus the number of vehicles and employees that they're looking at.
Yeah.
And it's whatever was approved in '98, you got to remember, times, everything are totally different now. So what may have worked back in '98 may not necessarily work in 2016.
Right.
And the growth you guys have talked about, okay, what if they do grow? What if they do grow?
And it's certainly, I mean, the concern is the 10 employees.
And I'm sure he's hoping to grow.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff, did you want to say? You've heard our thoughts.
Sure. So I've spoken with my client. He's happy to start off with 7 parking spots in the front, if that's what the board would like. Obviously, you recognize we might want to come back in and ask for more. I would just ask if you do say that 7 is the limit, note in the decision that we would be able to come back in and ask for more and not have it be seen as a repetitive petition of some kind. That's the concern that I would have there. I'm appreciative of the fact that the board acknowledges that the past problems aren't necessarily going to be mirrored in the future. I checked with Ollie, the zoning enforcement officer, last week. She said at this point she doesn't have any open file on this matter. She doesn't have any open complaints. We've got a dedicated person in Ollie who's responsible for dealing with any enforcement issues. So whatever the board puts in the decision for limitations, the applicant's going to have to live up to those requirements. He's looking to be a good, citizen, corporate citizen in town. I would suggest that the fact that the use may have been less intense recently doesn't result in an abandonment of the use. The decisions from 92 and 98 didn't specify any intensity whatsoever. It just said that there could be a commercial use, that of a plumbing business. So I don't think that we've abandoned the special permit in this case. I just wanted to be clear on that point.
All right.
I do have a question for
Yeah,
Jeff.
sure.
Jeff, you said your client would be amenable to 7 parking spots, and you had mentioned something about in the front.
Yes.
And so could you point on the plot plan? So instead of 5, you'd expand that to 7?
Well, the current special permit decision says there are 7 parking spots
In the front, in the
and
front.
So that would be
So that would be, remain as unchanged.
correct.
So, just for clarity's sake, the modification then now becomes, given that understanding, now becomes potentially a condition of hours of operation and changing a trade from plumbing and heating to general contractor's use.
Right, and so again, on the first floor would be shop space and storage, second floor would be office space and storage for a general contractor, no plumbing use whatsoever, no residential use whatsoever.
I have a follow-up question. Are the pickup trucks and 4 trailers, backhoe, I don't know if the backhoe has to be, all registered to the business that will be there?
They're either in Mr. Smith's name, or I believe his brother has some of them registered in his brother's name.
Okay.
I do have one more question.
Are any of them over 13,000 gross
Yeah,
vehicle?
that's what I was going to ask.
No.
Okay.
Backhoe's not over 13,000?
No.
Okay.
You would want to condition that?
Yep. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Are we comfortable? Do we need more information? Are we comfortable closing?
I'll move to close.
Okay.
Second.
So that was Mark and Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And how would you guys like to proceed? Do you want to have some more discussion, or you want to move forward? I think the proposal or the suggestion to limit it to 7 for now would be in keeping with what's there, and that rids our concern regarding spaces 6 through 10 that are shown on this plan.
I think they also should update this drawing and get rid of the bedroom and the living room and show it like it's intended to use.
The
For record.
interiors as well.
For the interior,
Yes.
yeah. Just for the record, so that if there's people living there, all of a sudden you got evidence that says they weren't supposed to be.
Right, and I think that we need an updated exterior plan, or a site plan.
If
Yeah.
you change the 7
Yeah.
parking spaces, most definitely you'll ask
Yeah.
for a revised plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Operation 7 to 7, I think was, they were okay with. I think we need a limit as well on the number of commercial vehicles to be stored on site, and I think it should be limited to what they've proposed to date as well. So limiting the number of parking spaces and the number of vehicles to be stored there. And I think we can do all kinds of limits with what we've talked about, the
Yeah.
outdoor storage, no use of the adjacent lot, shed to be relocated, storage of the backhoe on the concrete slab. I don't know, are there any other concerns?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Parking?
Outside stockpiling of material?
Right,
Should
yeah,
all
no,
be interior?
no outdoor storage
Yeah.
of materials. And obviously, no residents and
Yeah.
Right, and no stove, no cooking.
no stove, right.
So,
So-
does the board, if you're going to approve it based on what you've just said,
Mhm.
do you want to have it drafted first?
Yeah.
I
think
think
so.
that
I would-
makes sense.
I would move to have the administrator draft an affirmative action inclusive of all the discussion and the findings and potential conditions that were amenable or agreeable by the petitioner. Is that adequate
Mhm.
for a motion?
Yeah, you need a second?
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so that was Mr. Cool and Mr. Murphy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So the
Unanimous.
hearing is closed, and I'll bring back a draft. Gosh, I hope I'll try to get it done by next Thursday. Jeff, I'll send you a copy, of course, for your review. If I can't, Jeff, it'll be March 24th. I'll try very hard to get it done,
Thank you, sir.
okay?
Do we need a break or we go to- Thank you.
Good job, you guys.
I think we might take a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
application is number 11715 MPG Corporation, 435 Palmer Avenue, Falmouth. This is a special permit to raise and reconstruct a gas station and convenience store.
And Madam Chairman, I'll recuse myself from this hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Attorney Moynihan?
Do you want to go over the things we asked her?
Oh,
for?
sorry.
The things that, do you want to go over the things that the board requested?
Sure. TJ, do you?
Flip to the minutes here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to recap from the last meeting, we requested a letter from the town planner for no site plan confirmation, landscape improvement and parking reductions. Provide a copy of the Cape Cod Commission traffic study and driveway curb cuts.
Thank you, TJ.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the board. For the record, I'm Laura Moynihan, an attorney representing the applicant. With me is Patrick Laughlin, civil engineer, project manager, and Peter Garrett, the principal of the applicant. Since the last hearing, we have filed revised plans, which you have. I filed a fairly long letter summarizing what we've done, and I've also filed a letter addressing some issues that were raised by the Attorney Oppenheim on behalf of the abutter Cape Cod Bagel. So I won't go through all of that, obviously, in detail. I'll proceed on the basis that the board has read everything, unless you'd like me to. But I will just recap briefly, and Patrick will go through the specific details of the plan changes with you in a few minutes. So essentially what we've done is that we have, since the last hearing, revised the plans. Because of the questions that were raised by Attorney Oppenheim as to the traffic generation calculations and other traffic issues, we did ask a traffic engineer to compile a report, and that is in your file. That was filed, which confirms the traffic data that I had provided at the last hearing, that we do have a relatively small increase in trip generation in the peak hour. The AM peak hour is 21, 22 trips. So I believe it's 12 in, 10 out. So a low traffic increase, certainly less than 25 trips. Traffic engineers concluded that any estimated increase in traffic or trip generation will not have a significant impact and is negligible. It should not affect the traffic functions of the area or the site. Also, keeping in mind the traffic engineer did include the Mass DOT traffic counts. I had given you the Cape Cod Commission traffic counts, so you now have two agencies that are giving you traffic counts well in excess of 20,000 trips per day on the adjacent roadways. So a significantly traveled roadway, and again, that goes to the issue of the lack of any significant impacts from this development due to the traffic that's already on the roadway. We also filed for you, I think Ms. Beelan was interested in reading the Cape Cod Commission reports and decisions regarding the intersection improvements and how those were improved to acceptable levels of service after 2000, or in or about 2004. So my letter dated February 29th summarizes a lot of that. We've also summarized, again, the benefits from the project. With that letter, I also filed correspondence that was submitted on behalf of the Cape Cod Bagel when they applied for their property expansion, documenting the absence of traffic accidents. In those proceedings with the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals, and in prior permit applications for that entity, and Also with White's Automotive, it has been consistently been maintained that the traffic is adequate at this location, and that goes back into the 1990s. I also wanted to just address briefly, today I received from Ms. Boudreau directly a letter from Attorney Oppenheim raising a new issue. Obviously, I really have not had time to adequately respond to this in writing, but I can give you my thoughts to that. Essentially, Attorney Oppenheim is now raising an issue that this building cannot be taken down and rebuilt with a less non-conforming setback and lot coverage than is proposed for the plans. He cites two cases, one from 1991 and one from 2014 in support of that position. And I expect he will likely speak about that tonight. I just wanted to remind the board that this issue has consistently been raised before this board, typically by those opposing applications. It's been addressed for many years and in many cases. And I think to my knowledge, in these cases, the board has consistently accepted and applied the principle that the Falmouth zoning bylaw is different, that reconstruction is included in our bylaw, that the law does allow the Falmouth zoning bylaw to be different and to authorize this particular development. We have cases such as the Wharf Casino from 1991, where the building was taken down and rebuilt with a non-conforming setback. We have the White's Automotive cases themselves. We also have the Cape Cod Bagel building itself, which was taken down and rebuilt while maintaining a non-conforming setback. So the most recent case that this board has dealt with, I think, is the Fender case, where this same issue came up in terms of how does our bylaw treat reconstruction. And I think the board in that case accepted the arguments that were put forth, that we do have a unique situation. That Falmouth accepts the fact that you can take down a building and rebuild it with a lesser nonconformity, that's a benefit to the community, that it actually allows for many dilapidated properties to be rebuilt that may not otherwise be able to be rebuilt. Certainly in this particular case, this site is in need of upgrade. It's a site that requires a great deal of investment to rebuild this property. The building size is instrumental to that. Trying to get the lot coverage down on this site and putting the investment into the property, I would think it's fair to say it's not possible. The lot coverage at 70%, it's not going to work. So the economics don't work. So I would urge you, when considering that information, to think about how these principles have been applied in Falmouth, how we do look at our zoning bylaws as being different, and also look to the benefits of the project for the town and the community, which I think we've outlined in detail. So with that, Patrick will spend a couple of minutes just reviewing quickly the changes to the plan, so you have those specifics.
Thank you.
Okay, again, for the record, I'm Patrick McLaughlin with MHF Design, civil engineer out of Salem, New Hampshire.
Could you just, sorry to interrupt, could you just hold the mic with you for the viewers at home? Thank you.
So I'll just briefly explain the changes that have been made since receiving comments at the last meeting. The board, as part of our previous presentation and feedback from them, they had requested that we take a look at a reduction in parking, which was kind of twofold. It was because there was what some members, I think, believe was maybe a little too much parking as it relates to the calculation in terms of what's required. And I think the ultimate goal was to achieve some additional open green space on the property. So based on those comments, we actually have reduced the parking. There were 2 previously proposed parallel spaces on the northerly property line, which we've eliminated and increased the green space in that area. We have eliminated the previously proposed parking spaces in front of the loading zone, as well as an additional parallel parking space, which is on the southerly property line, where we've now proposed a small landscaped island there. So in terms of increasing the on-site green space area, we've added about another 800 square feet of green space, which now brings our proposed lot coverage down to 79.7, so just under 80%, where currently 88.1% exists on site today. So I think that we've certainly made additional attempts to address the board's comments, as well as to provide adequate landscaping and green space to improve the site visually, but still allowed to be functionally. So we had previously discussed the need for a truck turning movement on the site, and so we've assured that with these added green space areas and reduction in pavement area, that we'll still have an adequate space to allow the fuel delivery truck to circulate through the site. And by increasing some of the green space areas along the southerly property line, it's given us an opportunity to have some areas to relocate some of the physical features that were on the abutting property before, which include the freestanding sign and the air tower and vacuum island, which are now proposed to be on the subject parcel. With the increase in green space, we're able to provide some additional landscaping features within those areas. So we've increased the landscaping along the retaining walls in the northerly property line to provide a buffer against just seeing the retaining wall itself. We've also increased landscape screening around the back of the building and in front of the trash enclosure, as well as some additional landscape areas around the base of the relocated sign and the relocated tank fences as well. And so we think that that's an adequate screening of those features that will have some visual enhancement of the site. And I think that basically sums up what we've changed on the plan since last time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to add as well that I should have said, and again, this sort of goes to the difficulty in trying to respond to these legal issues with only a couple of hours' notice, but if the board is concerned about this legal issue that's been raised today, I guess I would have to reserve the right to deal with that further. I do think it's important, first and foremost, that this is a modification of existing special permits. This is not a case where you're taking a pre-existing non-conforming structure that's never been subject to a special permit and trying to do something different with the site, which is clearly what the 2 cases are involving. So this is a distinct case. We have a well-established history here of special permits where this building has been modified, partially demolished, and expanded. The fact that we are looking to rebuild it, in my opinion and in my submission, it's not the same situation because it is subject of a special permit.
Okay, let me see if anybody has any questions for you. Paul? Ed?
No.
TJ?
No questions.
Ken?
So other than the lot coverage, are there other nonconformities that are persisting on the site?
This setback here is right now existing is 2.9,
And you're going to 10?
and we're going to 10 feet.
Yeah.
That's the only other one.
So that's becoming less non-conforming, but not totally conforming yet.
That's right. The pump canopy situation, which is existing, is also an existing non-conformity.
On
Nothing,
the
no-
edge of the canopy to the property
To
line.
the street line,
Yeah.
but that is, the existing is remaining.
And that's supposed to be,
It's a state highway in a business zone, so I believe it's 35 feet.
and you're at 9. But that's the current, that's what it is right now.
Right, and we're not doing anything to that. We're
Right.
not changing that at all.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, trying to meet those standards for this property, I mean, you have to take a good hard look at what's there and what's proposed. We have looked at it, we've looked at the size of the building, and again, as I said earlier, and Mr. Garrett can testify further, the economics aren't there to conform. You don't have a reasonably sized building that you can justify the million-plus investment in the property. And that, I think, is the reality of why Falmouth has been more flexible with these types of commercial properties, because we want redevelopment that improves these sites.
It's certainly true that we've been more flexible, but I am interested in, having read the case law, in whether we've been doing that, whether that flexibility is legally justified.
Well, and it's a complicated issue, and that's why it's unfortunate that it came in at 2:30 today. You know, and if I have to reserve the right to thoroughly respond to it, I will. I mean, you know, I'd like to be able to do that if the board has concerns about it. But I think that those cases don't talk about a modification. When we first looked at this project, you know, we went to the building commissioner and reviewed this with him. And that was his opinion, that you have a modification of existing special permits, you're in a different category. And based on that meeting and review, we went forward with the plans that we have. So, and I agree with that. I think that is a distinctive situation where you have pre-existing nonconformities that are originally approved by special permit, and you're modifying those previous approvals. It's a different situation than what you see in Snow and Rockwood in the more recent case, where you're looking at the first special permit approval, what's being done first and being adopted and approved by the community. Plus, as you know, because it's been argued before you many times, we have a different definition of alteration. Our definition in our bylaw includes reconstruction. You don't see that in other bylaws. It's not in the Chatham bylaw that was discussed in that case. It wasn't in the Norwood bylaw that you reviewed in the Chaffane case, which was the Fender application a couple of years ago. We went through, I represented the property owner, but we went through a lot of information and legal principles on that when I believe Mr. McNamara was the chairman and was concerned about it. And the council representative went up to Norwood and got their bylaw and came back and said, this bylaw is different. It's not the same as the Falmouth zoning bylaw. In the casino case, there's actually a very good summary of the board talking about how reconstruction is defined differently in the Falmouth bylaw. The Board of Appeals has looked at that as a benefit to the community for many years because it gives us more flexibility, and that was accepted there, and it's been applied, to my knowledge, consistently in the community. So I think there is a clear distinction, and I think the most important one is that you're dealing with modifying existing special permits rather than taking unpermitted, pre-existing, non-conforming structures that also contain non-conforming uses and changing them in the fashion of those two cases. Here, the uses are conforming.
Ken, do you have any other questions?
That's it for
Okay.
now.
I have a follow-up question on that, Attorney Moynihan. I, too, have not read the submission or the case law. I work and,
I know.
you know, it came in late. So I'll need more time personally, and I'm sure that you want more time, as you've said. The question I have for you is regarding previously approved by special permit. Were all of the pre-existing nonconformities that are existing, were some of those in existence before the property received special permits that blessed them?
For this particular site?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Particularly that setback from the north property line.
Okay.
And the same situation with the Bagel property, which was formerly the Colonial Plaza, which was taken down in 1989 or 1990 and rebuilt. Same thing.
Thank you. Sari, do you have any questions?
No,
at
I
this
don't.
time?
Thank you.
Okay. We will open it up to public comment. Attorney Oppenheim, I believe you would like to speak first. We'll afford you that.
Excuse me. I'm Jeff Oppenheim, for the record. I'm an attorney here in Falmouth. I'm the older half of the Oppenheim and Nickerson, the guy with the gray hair. And I apologize for being late to this hearing process. I was only hired after you had your initial hearing on the 21st of January. But I did review the hearing. I watched it, and I looked at your minutes in preparation for tonight. And as Laura has said, I submitted 2 letters, one only a few hours ago. And I apologize. I wish I could have gotten to that and done it earlier, but I did not have that opportunity. So this evening, I want to focus my comments on my second letter, which is the letter that, as Laura has pointed out, really addresses what I think the law is on this issue. And it may be, it's possible, that our community has not been approaching this the proper way. And I want to submit that to you, and I think Laura should have an opportunity to, submit letters, briefs, whatever she would like to the board. I certainly would like to have an opportunity to respond to whatever she submits. It may very well be that the board thinks that this is an issue that should be addressed by the 2 capable attorneys that the town has. I can't say to you that what I'm going to tell you is going to be for sure something that will be supported by our town council, but I think it merits a very close examination by all of you. And it's a kind of a technical discussion here, so I'm going to apologize in advance. I don't want to bore anyone, but we are going to be talking about Massachusetts case law. We're going to be talking specifically about Chapter 40A, Section 6, and it's dry. Now, if you don't have copies of the cases that I submitted this afternoon that I hope were emailed to you, I have extra copies, and I'm happy to provide them to you at this point. Would that be helpful?
I know I have a copy. Does everybody?
I think we all
I
have.
got an email at the last minute.
So maybe if
He's talking the case laws, I believe.
Right, I
Which
have
I did
copies of those.
copy
Hold on, does
for
anyone
myself,
else?
but not for you guys.
Thank you.
I'm all set.
This is general law he's submitting. No, it's case law he's submitting. 2 different cases.
So the first case, Harrison versus St. Pierre, which was a case that was decided just in January 2014 by our appeals court. And it's coming out of a decision from the Zoning Board of Appeals of Chatham. And in that case, the Zoning Board of Appeals gave the St. Pierre's a special permit to demolish an existing structure and build a new replacement structure. So if this is starting to sound a little familiar, it should, because it's factually very, very close to what we're talking about here. The existing non-conforming gasoline station had an auto repair shop and a gas, and it was being made into a gasoline station with a convenience store. Exactly what we have here, really. The abutter filed an appeal in the land court, and the judge in the land court allowed the abutter's motion on summary judgment. It never got to a trial. The judge said to the abutter, "You're correct." The St. Pierre's filed an appeal of the land court's decision. And it's that appeal which is in front of you. It's a two-page decision. It's not that involved. But in that case, the ZBA at the time made note of nonconformities that exist, just like Laura has done this evening and in the first hearing. Very straightforward. The canopy is nonconforming. The northerly side of the property is nonconforming. It's also nonconforming on lot coverage and probably a few other matters, but those are the primary things. So the Zoning Board of Appeals in Chatham felt, well, this is really an improvement. We're making something better. Yeah, we still have some nonconformities, but we can live with them. And, they wrote about that in their decision, just as I would assume that you would write about it. So the ZBA found that it met the standard of 243, that the new project was not substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming uses and structures. And again, the ZBA did a good job of noting the changes or the nonconformities. Now, the land court judge, in denying the special permit, referred to the Rockwood case, which is this Rockwood versus Snow in court. Now, that's a Chatham case. We've got a lot of cases here in the Cape. Now, that case was a case at the highest level in our state court system. It's a case from the Supreme Judicial Court. Can't get any higher than that. And the Rockwood case is important because it dissects Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 6. And I'm going to take a look at that in a moment. Back to the Harrison case, which is the two-page case in front of you. It states, and this is a quote, "Specifically absent a variance which was not issued here, a pre-existing non-conforming commercial," I'm going to emphasize commercial structure, "may not be reconstructed, extended, or changed unless the new structure first is found to be in compliance with the zoning bylaw setbacks and other dimensional requirements." I'm going to repeat that. A pre-existing non-conforming commercial structure may not be reconstructed, extended, or changed unless the new structure first is found to be in compliance with the zoning bylaw setback and other dimensional requirements. The proposed structure and use did not meet the Chatham zoning bylaws, either as to dimensional or the use requirements. Here we don't have a use issue. The use is allowed by right. And the court said that the special permit was not, the project was not properly subject to a special permit. And they used the Rockwood case, and they denied the application. The appeals court said that the statute, our state law, and this Rockwood case, which is the SJC case, speaks to the elimination of non-conforming uses and structures, not the reduction in the replacement structure. It says the language is right in the decision. You can look at it on page 2, bottom of the second column. So now we turn to Rockwood versus Snow, Inc. It's a 1991 case here in the Cape. And the Harrison case relies on it. It's a long case, it's in there, but most of the case is about littoral rights, which has nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight. It has to do where the extreme low tide is versus the mean low tide. And the court goes into a lot of detail on that, but it's really not relevant to this discussion. But what is relevant is on the page 2 of that decision, if you have it in front of you, and I gave it to all of you, is how the court dissects Chapter 40A, Section 6. And I'm going to submit to you as an attorney, reading the first couple of sentences of 40A, Section 6. The first sentence is 11 lines long. Okay? I mean, I'm finding that very difficult to read. But if you look at the second page of the Rockwood case, you'll see how the highest court in our state dissects that paragraph. And I'm going to just take you through it because it's important here. It's on page 2. It's under page 363 if you want to follow with me. It's that second paragraph. Except as hereinafter provided, a zoning ordinance or bylaw shall not apply to structures lawfully in existence before the first publication of notice of the public hearing required by Section 5, but shall apply to any reconstruction, extension, or structural change of any such structure, except where reconstruction, extension, or structural change to a single or two-family residential structure does not increase the non-conforming nature of the structure. They carve out an exception for single and two-family residences. They say nothing. They don't exclude commercial dwellings in that section of the law. Then they go into the not more detrimental discussion, which Laura and I have tried to do, me through my letter, Laura in her presentations before the board. So in my opinion, you never get to that second stage of the argument. You never get to discuss whether this is not more substantially detrimental to our community, because you don't have a project that conforms to your zoning bylaw. That's my interpretation of these two cases. Obviously, you're going to read them more carefully. Maybe you'll submit them to council. You'll have Laura's response to my position. And I'm sure you will make a proper decision. But just because we've been doing it one way forever doesn't mean we've been doing it right. And it may mean that we have to address our bylaws. I'm going to take a minute to take a look at our bylaw here with you. It's on, it's 243. It's on page 249 if you have a bylaw. Hope you do. But C starts out with a preface. Pre-existing non-conforming structures or uses may be extended, altered, or changed only by special permit from the Board of Appeals. And then it goes, the second sentence is, any such change, extension, or alteration shall not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing non-conforming use or structure. everything that follows is subject to that first two sentences, because it's indented and it has, 1, A, B, C, D, et cetera, et cetera. So C1B, okay, and there's a typo in my letter. I just said C1, and I should have written C1B. Talks about the change or alteration of structures may be allowed as maintaining or lessening any nonconformity without having to meet existing dimensional requirements. Okay, so you may say, well, why doesn't that apply? Well, I don't think it applies because it's not a change or alteration. You take a building down, there's nothing more dramatic than that. You're raising the entire building, you're taking it down, and you're rebuilding it. And this was brought out before I raised the issue by a couple of members in questions and answers to Laura during the first hearing. I think you were a little bit concerned, how could this happen? That this building was being rebuilt, made larger, and still non-conforming. The economic argument is interesting, but I don't think it's relevant. It's not relevant to your decision because it has to be 3,500 square feet. My first letter to you showed that there's several buildings here in town that are gas stations, convenience stores, which are less than 3,500 square feet. They all seem to be doing okay. We seem to have a superabundance in our community of gasoline stations with convenience stores. It looks like we're, I guess, going to get another one, but I don't think it should be looking like the plan that has been presented to you. So you'll also see under C2, it exempts alterations, reconstructions, and extensions or structural changes to a non-conforming single or two-family residence. They specifically talk about reconstruction, but they only talk about it in the context of single and two-family structures. Well, why didn't they include commercial there? Did we forget at town meeting to include it? I don't think so. And later under C, on the next page, if you turn the page, they talk about other reconstruction, specifically in paragraph C and D. D is very interesting to you because it talks about the reconstruction of any permitted commercial accommodation. Again, another exception. Reconstruction of a permitted commercial accommodation. Well, why do you think we have an exception for that in the town of Falmouth? Because we're a community that invites a lot of visitors. And I think we want to protect our commercial accommodation. We want to be careful that we can rebuild that. So I think this issue needs to be looked at very carefully by the board. I don't think I need to go any further, frankly. I don't think I need to argue to you about whether this is not more detrimental to our community. I did put some arguments in a letter to you. I think it's a large building for the site, 3,500 on 19,000 square feet, 19,733 square foot lot. We just had a Cumberland Farms built in T-Ticket, 3,800 square foot Cumberland Farms, 51 or 2,000 square foot lot. It's in my first letter to you on the chart. So I think we need to think about scale if we're going to get to that point in the argument. If you're going to reject the fact that these two cases exist and my interpretation, or if town council does, then perhaps we should come back and discuss the second tier of the argument, which is not more non-conforming. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see if anybody has any questions. Paul?
No, thanks.
Ed? TJ? Ken?
So Laura brought up the fact that reconstruction in our bylaw is defined differently. I think
Laura said
Paraphrasing her.
alteration is defined differently.
Alteration?
I think that's what she said, but she can tell us what she said.
So how is alteration defined?
I don't think it's defined.
Because I don't find reconstruction defined, so
Right, I don't think alteration is defined either. I mean, I think you use your common sense. Alteration, change, extension. I mean, those are not taking a building down and putting up a new building.
Right, I just want to be
Yeah.
sure that there isn't something distinguishing in our bylaw with respect to this case law that you brought up.
I don't know of anything. I'm not trying to mislead you, okay? And I wish I had the opportunity this week to have presented my letter early in the week, but I just did not have that opportunity. This case came to my office's attention in the context of the Elm Arch Inn, which never got before the board, but is a commercial,
Part of it.
was a inn, okay? And we had a client who was interested in buying it. And so this case came into the discussion at that time. This research that I've done really over the last 24 hours, pretty much, it was surprising to me. It wasn't what I expected to find. I've been practicing before this board probably 33 or 32 years, something like that. And I have never had to look at this issue from an abutter's point of view. And that's my obligation, representing Cape Cod Bagel. And this is what I found. I would like to submit to you a petition that was given to me by a citizen of the community for the record. It was not drafted by my office, for sure, the way it's phrased. It does have 271 people in our community who signed being opposed to this project. If I had a copy, I would give it to my colleague, but I was just handed it this evening. So I would like to give it to the clerk.
Ken, do you have any other questions?
No more questions.
Okay, I have just a couple of questions, and I may have more after I've had an opportunity to look over all this. The case that you provided, I just want to make it clear for the record, this Harrison v. St. Pierre case, this is a Rule 128 decision.
That's correct.
And were we provided with a full copy of the decision?
Excuse me?
Were we provided with the full copy of the decision?
You were provided with the copy that I had, which is from
Okay.
LexisNexis.
Because the question I guess I have is, I think that this would speak to what Attorney Moynihan was saying. The last paragraph, page 2, just says, lastly, the judge correctly rejected the argument from the St. Pierre's that the Chatham zoning bylaw is more permissive than the corresponding section of the Enabling Act. And then there's no further discussion, and it seems as if there should be some further discussion. That seems like an intro. I would think that the court would have opined further on that. And that might shed some light onto our own bylaw. So
There is a prior case, Harrison versus Fooey, that was decided in 2012. I did not have a chance to review that, but it is mentioned on the first page of what I did give to you, okay? So there may be more information available there. Now, I just want to pass out for the board's benefit what an appeals court rule 128 means, because frankly, I didn't know what it meant before. read this.
Thank you.
Attorney Oppenheim, if I could just follow up on my question.
Sorry.
So do you know if this is a complete copy of the decision? You think it is?
I think it is.
Okay.
I mean,
All
I
right.
have no reason to, I mean, the reason it's short, I think, is in part
Well,
because.
because it's a Rule 128 decision.
Exactly.
But it does look like there could be some more. That was all. But you can, if you want to explain what a Rule 128 decision is for the benefit of the board, you
That'd be
can
good.
certainly do that.
So it's a very limited decision, the way I understand it, and I do not profess to be an expert on Rule 128. I'm not an appellate lawyer. But basically, when the court has already, when there is a court that's already decided the issue, the appeals court doesn't rehash it unless there's a really good reason. And the reason they didn't rehash the law is because of the case, the other case that I provided you, okay? And they just applied the decision in that case to the facts of the Harrison case. So that's why, I think that's why the decision is short and, limited. It's not because there should be no precedential value to it, because they're relying on an SJC precedent in this case.
But the case itself doesn't have binding precedential value, is that correct? It's persuasive authority only?
Right.
I just want to be clear
Yeah, I
as
think
to.
you can see a summary decision pursuant to Rule 128 may be cited for its persuasive value, but because of the limitations noted above, not a binding precedent, okay? So I'm giving it to you because I think it's persuasive. I think the facts are so similar to what we're talking about today that you really need to know about it. That's why I'm bringing it to your attention.
Ken, do you have a question?
Well, I guess, this might be a question for you. Is the precedent then, the Rockwood versus Snow?
Well, I think as
Because
attorney.
that's the SJC case,
Yeah,
right?
so this decision certainly relies on cases, Rockwood, you see Cox v. Board of Appeals, obviously citation to Chapter 48, Section 6. So it's relying on binding precedent. And I think Attorney Oppenheim's classification that it doesn't present, I guess, new substantial questions of law, those questions of law have already been settled.
Right.
So it's not bad law by it, I mean, it's
Right.
good law, it's just not itself binding precedent. That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yep, sure.
Just to respond, I guess I would like the opportunity to respond to this further in writing, but I think Attorney Oppenheim is presenting an argument to you that sounds on the surface to be somewhat persuasive, but you have to go back to really what are the facts here. It is not the same case, first of all, as Harrison versus St. Pierre. We don't have a non-conforming gas station use. Our bylaw is not the same as the Chatham bylaw. We have a broader bylaw. The language of our bylaw says alteration, reconstruction, extension, or structural change, collectively, quote, alteration. Those are the key words. All right, alteration is defined as including reconstruction in our bylaw. It then goes on to say to a non-conforming residential structure. But that language does not qualify the definition of alteration. It comes after. That's been the position of the town of Falmouth for decades. That's been applied since the Rockledge case in 1991. And I'll give you the summary of that. The best summary is in the casino case that this board decided. The board said in its decision, relative to the issue as to whether or not this reconstruction can be allowed in Falmouth by special permit. The Falmouth zoning bylaw defines alteration as including reconstruction, without limitation or exclusion. There are standards in section 240-3 to guide the board in exercising its discretion with respect to a property reconstruction. It is our belief that the Falmouth Board of Appeals has consistently and correctly allowed the reconstruction of non-conforming buildings even when the replacement building would be non-conforming. It is this board's opinion that overall the community has benefited greatly as a result of the redevelopment of properties that has taken place in Falmouth over the years. Okay? That is been the position in the community, relying on the specific definition in our bylaw. Some people may not like that. I can't tell you the number of hearings I've been at for applicants where this same argument has been brought up by abutters. It's a classic argument because it only looks at the surface of the case law. When you start dissecting this case law, as you have started to do, you see that there's much more to it. And it stems from what has happened since 1991 with Rockledge. All right, since 1991, when this general broad principle was established under the state law, nothing has taken away the law that says the local communities have the right to authorize this type of activity under their bylaw. Regardless of what Section 6 says or the courts have said in different communities. That's a very important point. Nothing has taken away the right of the local communities to authorize this activity. That's the position that Falmouth has taken. This activity is authorized, and it's been consistently applied by the zoning board to allow these redevelopment projects that continue to be non-conforming on some level. All right, in Rockwood and Snow, there was no other language authorizing this activity. In Harrison, there's no other language authorizing this activity. I have the Chatham bylaw. It's not the same as our bylaw. Just like in Chaffane, the case you looked at in the Fender case, where somebody had to drive to Norwood. It's not the same bylaw. Our bylaw is different. And that's a very important point. You have to look beyond the surface of what you're being told is the law, because it's not the law in Falmouth. We have local indulgent bylaws. You've heard that phrase over and over again. And the communities are allowed to authorize this activity. If people don't like that, the remedy is to go to town meeting, get the bylaw clarified, or cleared up, or changed. But that's what we have right now. It also, you have to look beyond this surface argument to the fact that we're modifying existing special permits. If we've been doing something wrong since 1991 in Falmouth, then we've been doing it wrong on many, many, many properties that are subject to special permits, because buildings that are subject to special permits come down and new buildings go up, and they don't conform. And that's the way we roll, and that's the way we've rolled for many years. So, although it's somewhat persuasive that possibly we've been doing things wrong, and possibly the board should be looking at this very carefully, and possibly, this development isn't authorized, it's just not the case. And it hasn't been the case in this community for many, many years. In fairness to this applicant, our first hearing was January 21st on this matter. All right, we have done everything that the board has asked us to do in terms of the plan changes. We spent a lot of time on this. Now we're into this new surface issue that we have to re-dissect again for you, which is fine. I mean, the applicant has to do it. The abutter has the right to come to you at 2:30 in the afternoon and throw this argument on the table and confuse everybody and force me to go write, a 6-page memorandum giving you 1,000 cases in Falmouth where the Board of Appeals has applied Rockledge and dismissed it. So, Rockwood, excuse me, okay? And that's really the reality of it, and that's what I have to do. but I have to give you all that information. You can look in the FX Casino file, because it was all done there, volumes of it. So we'll do it again. But I guess in doing that, I would ask that maybe it ends there. I don't think there should be this back and forth. The abutter has put forward their legal argument, the applicant is entitled to respond, and the board weighs those two opinions. But I don't think there should be back and forth. If that's the only issue, then we should be allowed to respond, give you our submission on it, and that's it.
Thank you. Ken, do you have a
I
question?
did have a couple questions. So the section of the bylaw you read is 243C2A,
2A. Right.
right? So you didn't read it in its entirety. You
No.
left out alteration, reconstruction, extension, or structural change, collectively alteration, to a non-conforming single or two-family residential structure.
Right.
Is it your contention that that's a general definition for alteration that applies throughout the bylaw?
That's been the position for many years, and that's how the board has applied
Is
it.
it conceivable that the board has been misapplying it?
I don't think so, because there's no limitation or exclusion on it. And that's what I just read to you from the casino case, where it was looked at very, very carefully.
What was the use in the casino case?
There was a nightclub and restaurant that was converted to a new restaurant. There were apartments.
So there was a residential component to it.
There was a residential component to it, but the issue there was the setback, because the setback of the building was
All I'm saying
non-conforming.
is that might have, when we talk about distinguishing features, that might have been a distinguishing feature that pertained to the use of this section of the bylaw.
No, I don't think so, because it was specifically cited in the case, and I'll give you that, you can look at it. It was specifically cited that the nonconformity was the setback.
Yeah.
And the building was coming down, and it was still staying as nonconforming. So here's a question for you. How do we distinguish all of the many, many, many cases where these buildings that have nonconforming setbacks alterations are approved to them by special permit, and then those buildings come down and they get rebuilt? That's happened in Falmouth.
Well, it has, but each case, as every proponent up there says, stands on its own merits and is distinctive, so.
Right. And like I said, this isn't a surface issue. It's not
Certainly, if Mr. Oppenheim is right, there's broad implications for the interpretation of 240-3 as this board has been applying it to commercial development throughout the town. But this case is what we're talking about.
This case is what we're talking about. But the key point is that there's nothing to limit or exclude it in the bylaw itself. That's why and how the board has applied it the way they do in many, many cases. There's nothing to limit or exclude it. It is unique to this community, and that's why when you get these Section 6 cases presented to you as the law, it's no different when you have dealt with cases where you're asking to approve undersized buildable lots, and you get attorneys coming to you and saying, oh, Section 6, the court looked at Section 6, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and you got merger, and all these arguments. When you start to dissect those and really look at what the law broadly says, it says that the communities have the right to have broader provisions in their own bylaws. And that's what happens with those buildable lot cases, and it's no different in this type of case. So we have to dissect it. And I guess I have to, unfortunately, ask you to have the right to do that and submit a brief on the point, so.
Thank you. Okay, so next steps. Obviously, continuance. I think it makes sense to get an opinion from town council. Does everybody agree? And certainly, even if he's provided one in the past, he can review updated case law and things of that nature. I would just say, and as we had said last time as well, last time we received an opinion from town council, the attorney submitted information directly to town council, and that should not have happened, so please do not do that. Everything should be submitted through our board. So we'll ask Attorney Duffy for an opinion as to
All right.
this.
When do you want to continue the hearing to?
Attorney Moynihan, how long do you think it will take to get something together? I know.
Probably a week.
Oh, okay.
I guess it depends on how far in advance you want it, but it'd probably take me a week to put it together.
I think realistically, we're probably looking at the 24th.
Really?
The 10th is so jammed.
Yeah, look at
Yeah.
all that stuff.
And the 24th, I wouldn't put it there.
Oh, I'm looking at old
You've got
ones.
two 40Bs, you've got a brand-new commercial project.
Sorry, I was looking at old ones.
So the only one I could
Mhm.
right now do, unless you want to come up with a new date, which I hope you don't, April 14th.
It's really far out.
It is, but it is what it is. I mean, the 10th and the 24th, I don't know how we could possibly fit it in there.
Well, if we need to get town council input,
That's going to take
maybe we want to give some
a little
thought.
while.
Okay.
All right, you want a motion?
Yeah,
Is
oh,
that-
the other thing that I wanted
that
to
date-
mention too.
Are you available on the 14th of April?
Yeah, I mean, it's
The taxes will
unfortunate,
be
it's
done.
so, unfortunately, yes. But it's unfortunate that we're, like I said, we started this process January 21, and because of this now coming up at the last minute, we're out another month on this. I know you're busy, and I get that. If it's
gonna
just
be-
limited to this issue, and submissions, oral submissions are limited to 5 minutes, is there some way we could maybe squeeze it in earlier? And I guess the other question is,
I just want to say that this is a significant issue. In my time on the planning board, we struggled with this section of the bylaw and this raise and reconstruct issue as it was applied to commercial development.
My issue is town council is getting prepared for town meeting, which is April 4th and 5th, I believe. So they're going to put it off a little while because this is going to be an extensive research on their part too. So I don't know how we can get it any sooner.
I expect that they may have already dealt with this, so that'll be my first research project, is finding the old opinions.
I do remember a couple opinions I do have.
How does the board feel?
You could start the 24th at an earlier time
Ken, could you make
and
that?
limit
Yeah, probably.
the presentations.
Okay.
6?
6 on the 24th.
A half hour. Okay.
We'll
Thank-
limit the presentations, and we'll
Okay.
have submissions, I expect, in advance. Our policy is a week in advance.
Right.
And the other thing I did just want to address, I know Attorney Moynihan, you just said no back and forth, and I know when Attorney Oppenheim was speaking, he said he wanted to have an opportunity to reply to yours. We're not going to go back and forth. I mean, there's a set deadline, it's a week in advance. If you happen to get it in first or second, obviously, the issues are the issues, and they've probably been briefed already.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. And I guess the last question is the board otherwise satisfied with the plan changes? Are there any questions or?
Yeah, I like them.
you
I
them?
like them as well.
Yeah.
I think that was.
You did what we asked.
Yes, okay, well, that gives us a higher level of comfort then. Okay, thank you.
Does the board want to take a vote for
Sure.
March 24th?
Excuse me.
Well, do you need a motion?
At 6 PM.
I just want to remind
Yeah.
the board that the public has not had an opportunity to comment.
We had public comment at the last hearing. We can have public comment again. We've just already spent, obviously, the hearing's still open.
Yeah, we've still got another one.
So we still have another hearing. So I would be inclined to have public comment at the next hearing. But why don't we do this? We can have public comment tonight. Obviously, the issue on the 48 Section 6 and the legal issue has already been more than adequately addressed by council, and we're going to be hearing about that. So if you could limit your comments to the plan and what's being proposed by the applicant with respect to the gas station and convenience use, that would be
And limit it
what we
to
should
2
do. And
minutes.
limit to 2 minutes per person. So I will. Is anybody here to speak in favor of this? Is anyone here to speak in opposition? Okay, then as it comes, you can stand up and provide your name and address if you would like to speak. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to be very short on this because you people have already come up with the absolute thing. I think it was mentioned by somebody up there. What we used to do 15 to 20 years ago doesn't fit in with today. So let's look at today. You've got all of the facts that
Oh,
were
excuse me,
presented.
could you just provide your name and address as well for the
I'm
record?
very sorry. Ahmed Mustafa, Precinct 4, East Falmouth. You've got all the facts. I think you should just look at that and let your conscience be your guide. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Okay. All right. So then,
You need a motion?
yes.
I'm really eager to make this motion.
Go for it.
I move that we continue this to March 24th at 6 PM here in Town Hall.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so that was, oh my gosh.
Ken Foreman and
Jeez,
Edvin.
Ken
He's been
Foreman
gone for
and
so
Edvin
long.
Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
And will the board be voting to limit the comment and testimony to this legal issue only, or are you going to leave the hearing wide open?
The hearing's open at this point, but there wasn't much comment tonight, obviously.
I'm just concerned if additional things are submitted at the last minute, then we're going to be back where we are
They're
today.
due a week in advance.
How's everybody doing? Does anybody need a break?
That's what we could, no, let's not take it.
I had a medium coffee. All right. Really? You don't want to take a break?
Do you really need
Yeah,
a
we're
break?
taking a break. Sorry.